You can interact
We're
here.
live now.
Okay, we're live on both now. Okay, you can definitely interact here. This is a normal night. This is not like a Monday night where we're recording our show. So any kind of questions, anything like that, we'll definitely see if we can get to them, answer them, talk about whatever it is that might be on your mind. So, we had some news in the past week, so definitely be talking about that news too.
Yeah, lots of stuff to go over today. This is kind of an impromptu, informal live chat for everyone that follows us on YouTube and Facebook. We're also live on TikTok right now with a little bit different view. So if you're on TikTok as well, you can go check us out over there. But I'm Adam. He's Steve or Mez. We're from the Team Blaney podcast. If you follow us week to week, obviously we do a weekly show. Started out mostly just as a podcast this year. We've expanded it to where it's a video show as well that we stream live on Monday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, most of the time. So that's kind of what we do week to week, give everyone an in-depth race recap from Ryan Blaney and the 12 teams race, talking about, practice and qualifying, stuff that, radio traffic and communications from the team, pit stops, and other insights that you might not catch when you're watching the race just on Fox or NBC or Prime or TNT or a variety of places that you can catch that now. So we didn't in our last show really get to preview Talladega. It is Talladega week, which is a big week for Ryan Blaney fans since he's so good there. So we thought we'd catch everybody up on what's happened ahead of Talladega, the point standings, let you know where you can watch it on TV. There's a lot of breaking news. Well, there's breaking news with the team we can go over that I know Steve did a live that day as it was happening as well with the pit crew. There's some interesting news today when it comes to the All-Star race and some format tweaks and changes to that, and a crew chief shakeup in the Cup Series from somebody over there at Spire Motorsport. So plenty to talk about. As Steve was saying when we first hopped on live and a couple of different places that we're live right now, if you are in the chats, ask questions, give your opinions, you can talk to us. But if not, we'll just kind of be kind of chatting amongst ourselves on all of those various topics. So
tomorrow, I'm off on Thursdays right now. So like tomorrow, maybe, I don't know, like last week about noonish, I still got three of these to make too. I don't have the background up. Well, I have it up on YouTube and on Facebook, but actually on TikTok right now, I'm trying the green screen and kind of trying to look cool around the car there. But there's the mini hoods. I've got 2 or 3 still more to make than I didn't do last week. So that might be something we do tomorrow. Just a Thursday afternoon kind of arts and crafts thing. Sundays, we were trying to. You're going to be at the track this Sunday.
Yep.
Excuse me. But so Sunday, I may still do like a little live, like an hour or so before race time, where we could just kind of like do a pre-race show. We'll talk about qualifying, talk about anything else that might have happened in the weekend in the race or two before that. Truck Xfinity or this week ARCA. If something exciting happens there, we'll talk about that. And who knows? Maybe we'll get Adam live for a second or two if the Wi-Fi is good. Talladega. It was horrible. I tried to
I was
do
trying
a
to
live
remember how that worked.
And it lasted all of like 30 seconds at Bristol. It was because you get to a certain time and so many people are there and you just can't.
Yeah, I can't remember how Talladega will be. This will be the first time in a while where we're not going to be in the infield. At least we're going to be in the infield in the evening, probably to go down to the boulevard and the concert and everything. But race time, on Saturday. On Sunday, though, we're not going to be in the infield. We're going to be watching from the stands. And I can't remember what it is. A NASCAR track, and the NASCAR-owned tracks have had better Wi-Fi in my experience. But out in Talladega is kind of out in the middle of nowhere, so I guess you never know. Depends on if they have a good cell tower or something. I mean, honestly, I would even just take, using my phone data and everything if I can get a strong connection there. But when there's so many people, you just never know. So we'll see what happens.
Totally sucks for your fantasy team too, because you get to the end of stage 2 and you're trying to make a change and you can't get on your phone to do it.
And
But, you know,
speaking of that, I went ahead and I made sure, because I'm upset with myself. I think it was Darlington week or something. I forgot to set a 36 for 36 pick, so I missed one of them.
oh yeah, yeah,
And I know people haven't
yeah. I think I did.
really caught on to that yet, but it made me sad that I missed that. But I did actually already set my fantasy lineup for this weekend, just in case I was to forget. But also, it's one of those like load management weeks where I've kind of picked a lot of people that, regardless of qualifying, that I have an opportunity to survive these races and finish pretty well. And welcome Justin into the chat on TikTok.
Yeah,
Looking forward to
there you
see
go.
him this weekend. We are making our plans to go meet up at a Ryan Blaney appearance that they're having on Saturday.
Right?
I don't have my quarter panel behind me right now. It's out in the garage getting ready to get loaded up into the car for the weekend. I'm not that big on autographs, but I thought it might be a cool opportunity for Ryan to sign that. So if you notice, my Dex Imaging quarter panel isn't back there, and I think Justin actually has a truck series bumper for Ryan to sign.
That's a
So
bumper time. Did you want to tell them about the other item that you're going to try to have autographed?
I do. I actually have
told that story yet? You have it behind you? Awesome.
Yeah. So
this is quite a story. It's amazing. Go ahead.
yeah. So my wife's uncle was an original member of the Quickest Lap internet message board that followed Dave Blaney. Huge fan. We talked racing a lot over his lifetime. He passed away recently, and we've been getting a lot of like his racing memorabilia and stuff that he really wanted Tara to have, and I'd have, just because of the Blaney connection. And one of the most recent items that her aunt passed along to us was kind of a surprising one, and I'd heard about it. It was just like he always took this kind of same cooler to the races. He went to races in Bristol and Michigan and Watkins Glen a lot. And so I'd always heard about this cooler. And the only thing I'd heard about it was the fact that it had like a big Skull Bandit sticker on the back, which is like one of the original Skull Bandit racing stickers. And then this Valvoline thing. But when you turn it around, it has some pretty awesome Blaney autographs on this. So on the TikTok,
yeah, there you go. You got to get both cameras here. So
this is on
TikTok, so those are
miss this part. But these are some iconic signatures on this one. You got Dave Blaney here. You got brother Dale Blaney up here. And then one that not a lot of people get to see is probably the largest Lou Blaney autograph I've ever seen in person. So I have one other Lou autograph that he signed a Sharon Speedway program for me when I was working there as a kid. So there is a perfect spot over here for a Ryan-sized autograph. So planning to take that this weekend if we can get it. If not, we'll catch him at another spot. But honestly, this Lou Blaney signature on here is pretty awesome. And I'm thankful for the family kind of passing this stuff down to us. So,
he's got, you can get to the autograph, you can hold up the autograph, but I think more than anything else, I think he just needs to see it. I think the fact that is amazing piece of family history to him. You know what I mean? And I don't, know how much of that. I mean, I'm sure he's seen things that his grandfather has, autographed or whatnot and so forth. But to have all three of those people on there already, I think when he sees it, he probably want to take a picture or something, I'm sure, to keep for himself even, so that he can show his family it and so forth too, because it's really, really cool.
So looking forward to that. And like I said, not a big autograph person, but for stuff like that, the quarter panel, I don't know how many things, honestly, we can try to, some of those appearances, they only let you get one thing signed or something, but there's two of us, so ideally one thing each. I am bringing the Dex Imaging car that goes with the quarter panel as well, just in case. We'll see. But there's plenty of other opportunities this year, next year. I'm not in a rush, but at least the quarter panel and at least the cooler. Gonna have to get up a little bit early to make sure we're in line to get some wristbands and things like that. So looking forward to that over the weekend.
And like I was kidding you earlier. I texted Adam earlier. I says, and make sure he gets this year's edition of the stickers too.
I don't have that. I still only have the old one. I didn't order new ones for myself yet, so I'm getting that.
Oh no, you don't have any of the new ones. Oh gosh, I've got some. I can't get them to you.
Oh well, we'll see at some point.
Oh man,
he'll get.
Yeah, because I don't know if we ever told that story or not. Did we about you having them autographed and everything?
Oh, that was at Talladega. So was that the first time I'd been to? Yeah, because you guys kind of surprised us and showed up.
We were there,
so
right, showed up.
But yeah,
and Adam got them autographed and got me one autographed. I wasn't even expecting it, and yes, and then you said you gave him a couple.
Yeah, I gave him a couple.
And he looked at you like. He said, "These are for me."
Yeah, that was kind of cool because he wasn't surprising, or it was kind of surprising. And then so that I just keep mentioning I'm not that big of an autograph person yet. Here we are talking about all these things, but yeah, I thought that was cool. The actual autograph sticker I have is some. I think it's out in the living room championship display. Yeah. But basically, he signed a couple of these. You got one. I got one. Ryan has a couple, and then. We start seeing social media posts from Ryan and in his kitchen, and there the stickers up on the refrigerator. Yeah. His refrigerator's covered in stickers.
On the refrigerator, like,
yeah. That was kind of cool.
We made the fridge. It's good we made the fridge. So, So, you guys are heading down for Saturday and for Sunday, then, right? You're gonna try to make the Xfinity race.
So Saturday, I see CJ on TikTok's asking about that. So yeah, we plan to be there, or at least I plan to be there. Sometimes you guys show up and you don't tell us, but plan to be there on Saturday for Xfinity Series, assuming the Ryan meet and greet moves rather quickly. As with most race weekends when we are in attendance, there is a pretty decent, significant chance of rain on Saturdays. So we'll see how that works out. But we do plan to be there for Xfinity and the Cup Series race on Sunday. We shall be there as well. So probably be walking around the fan zone before the races. And qualifying is Saturday. It's 10:30 Eastern time Saturday, so it'd be 9:30 Central. So kind of early. We are not going to make it to that because the Ryan deal is at 12:30, which is also right at the time of the General Tire 200 for the ARCA race. So the sad part about that is if anyone has been following Dale Jr. this week or is just a big fan of Cletus McFarland, he's going to be in the ARCA race again at Talladega. I never really followed his content much before, but he's had a fun week with his friends where they split up. Each group of friends got $5,000 to go buy like a Winnebago, and they had to drive it from North Carolina all the way down to Talladega, which I think they're in the process of doing that now. And in true Cletus fashion, he's been doing. They've been drag racing them. I think they were going to oval race the RVs as well. One of the teams has Greg Biffle in it, who's become a big friend of his recently too. But you can see some of that content on his and Dale Jr. stuff recently. So, but we might not be able to see him in that race. He raced at Daytona and was doing pretty well, but got crashed out. So we'll see what he does this time. Yeah.
Well, that was the great part of the content with him and Dale in the last week or two was he was asking Dale Jr. for some advice. And it was interesting to hear Dale Jr. say, well, half the guys says, hang back for 3/4 of the race. Hang back. He says, you'll pass guys just on their mistakes. You know what I mean? You just want to make sure you're not in the middle of their mistakes. You pass them. He says, and then you get the last quarter to go for it. But one of the things last week was they were in a truck together on Talladega Speedway, and Cletus asked him to bring him to pit road, and I found this was kind of interesting. Like the advice he was giving him was to make sure you're like they're coming off the track. Make sure you get to the flat before you hit the brakes, because when you hit the brakes, all four wheels will compress. And if you're on the banking and all, and you do that, you'll spin it out. And so he was like yeah, they're funny and they're laughing or whatever, but he
Yep.
was learning stuff and asking good questions. I think he'll run pretty well. It'll be Fox did a great job with the Daytona situation because he got crashed out. He does the interview down there that everybody loved, and then they put
Yep,
him in the
that's right.
booth. They hurried up and got him up to the booth, which was smart thing.
Yeah. And they've
So
asked him like, or Dale's like pressed him on like, why don't you go to a short track? Why don't you go to not? And like the way Cletus is, he's just like all about, he just keeps saying Dega over and over again. Like, it's more, a lot of it is more of a show and for content, but I think he's just likes having fun at the speedways, and he's in decent equipment. He's in that I think he's in that Rhett Jones Racing car that Frankie Muniz was in.
Yeah.
Not last year, but the year before. That's finished up front at super speedway races and has the capability of doing that. So if he could just stay clean, like you said, he can have an opportunity to run well. So back to some.
The wife says she's wearing the same shirt.
Yeah, it's a good shirt. I'm sad because this is one of the Brickyard shirts, and I still haven't been able to get there yet. I had to cancel last minute. We're not going to head up there this year, but one of these times, we'll get up there for that. So, Ryan related stuff. Catch everybody up on the point standings. After 2 straight top 5 finishes, Ryan has moved up a position to 6th in the standings overall, 71 points back of the leader, who is William Byron. 2nd's Hamlin, 3rd's Bell, 4th Larson, 5th Elliott, again Ryan in 6th. Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace are 7th and 8th. Teammate Joey Logano is in 9th, and 10th is Alex Bowman in the 48 car. Talladega Super Speedway for Ryan Blaney. Obviously, he is a Talladega Walk of Famer, Hall of Famer. Has a plaque down there in downtown Talladega in the park. It's kind of nice with a lot of other legends. So that's kind of cool. 21 starts at Talladega. He's completed 94% of the laps. He's led 290 laps in his career there. Average start of 12th. Average finish of 15.9. And I think that's actually... he's good at Daytona as well, but I think he actually has a higher crash percentage at Daytona, and that's kind of messed up his finish. But Talladega, not too bad. It's still not great. He has 5 DNFs there, 4 of them for crashes. 8 top 10s, 6 top 5s to go with those 3 victories that came back-to-back, 2019 fall, 2020 spring, and 2023 in the midst of his big, incredible championship run there, where they win at Talladega and they win at Martinsville, and then they win the championship. So notable of was it both the 2019 and 2020 races that were rain delayed to Mondays, that he won both of those. So
I know one was
and that was a rain delay one because he spun on the first day and then won the next day. So I don't want to see that, though. I mentioned rain in the forecast. Don't want that to happen.
not for Sunday. I don't think there's any rain for
so far. Not for Sunday. No. The last couple finishes there, though, 20th and 39th. So no bueno. In those couple of ones there. They will have a different teammate to work with this, which, I mean, I guess technically Barry was a Ford teammate last year with SHR, but he's going to be in the 21 car this year, so that might be a little bit of a different dynamic. Trying to think back how the Daytona 500 worked. So obviously they had an opportunity to work during speed weeks together a little bit here. But this will be the next time where I think even, Talladega is much bigger and wider. They get into, a 3 wide line a little bit more comfortably there. This was a race last year, I'm pretty sure in the spring or I think it was the spring, where Ryan did something a little weird and he ran in the back for a majority of like the first stage and never made his way to the front. And it was like we think we talked about it on the podcast. It was just the first time I'd seen him ever do that, because they had always taken the Dale Jr. approach, which is to qualify up front, stay up front, and control the race. and it was a little bit different to
Yeah.
see them running.
Do you remember? Do you remember why?
I mean, some of it's the fuel saving
Do you remember?
situation.
It
Yeah.
was totally the fuel thing. They're trying to make the pit stop as short as possible so that if he comes down pit road with 6 or 8 other guys, all Fords, let's say all the Fords come together, he wants to be the first guy in front of all those Fords, and then hopefully that line ends up being, the main line the rest of the way. So it's so deceiving sometimes just because of all that. And you're going to be at the track, so it's going to be even better because you won't hear about it as much. Well, I don't know.
Radio might.
You tune into the radio. Yeah. So I'm going to be tuned into to Tim. So you'll hear him say, okay, it's time to go or whatever. Like that. You know what I mean? Then they'll do that. But he does such a good job of just slicing and dicing. He's so good at the runs, knowing where they are and using them properly. His teammates, not so much. And that's the thing, is at some point he's got to get away from his teammates, I think that's, no offense to those guys.
Shout out to
he qualifies, he goes out 35th out of 39, or 36th out of 39. So he'll be at the end of the qualifying run.
Shout out to Joe Green that is watching on Facebook. Talking about being a Ryan fan and pointing out that he's a clean driver. So I'd agree with that. You brought up the fact that Ryan at these tracks has the ability to see the runs and sense the runs and take them at the right times and find his way to the front in this era where there is a lot of fuel saving. And in some instances where drivers say it's difficult to pass and you can't make your way through the field like they used to. We've talked about that topic in the past where Ryan has, clearly made his way to the front in any version of the race car that he's driven. So I want to revisit your thoughts on that and where you stand on like the Denny Hamlins of the world and some others that say that the super speedway racing isn't like it used to. It doesn't take as much skill as it used to. I mean, when you see a guy like Ryan that won at Daytona and won at Talladega in the previous generation car, but also immediately out of the gate is super good in the next gen car at these tracks.
Yeah, that's Denny. I don't want to rip him per se, but you got to take him with a grain of salt. He's trying to provide content first and foremost, right? He's doing a show. He's trying to provide content. He gets paid for that show. But sometimes he says things to cover his own butt. When he's saying stuff like that, it's because he doesn't have those skills and ability. He doesn't necessarily do well or think that this car is doing well because he's not doing well in it. There are guys who have learned how to operate this car. I saw the stat earlier about Ryan leading all those laps, since this car has come in, like 10% of the laps, he's led them since they've gotten to this generation car. So, is that just speed or is that certain ability to get to the front and know what to do, and how to run laps once you're up there? Denny's won a lot of races lately where he got lucky at the end of a race. No offense to him, but he don't race well at super speedways. He tries to hang back. He tries to show up at the end. He can't get the runs. He can't get the pushes. And it's because he doesn't know how to work with guys sometimes. I think that's all on him. Ryan 2 years ago wins that race. And you know who the main guy was to help get up there?
Herbst.
Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst, exactly. Of all the guys you're going to talk about for this weekend's race, you think of Riley Herbst as a contender? You probably should. He actually does pretty well. He knows how to push with these cars. He knows how to get you up there with these cars. Watch what he does with his teammates this weekend. Bubba Wallace is very good there, and watch what he does with, if the two of them get hooked up. So, yeah, Ryan knows how to operate well with guys. Guys trust him out there. That's the other thing, Anybody can push anybody or be pushed by anybody. But do you want to see the 77 behind you this weekend?
No.
With his crappy pushes, right, in the corners and stuff? No. But Ryan, on the other hand, is a guy that you would trust to see his bumper behind you. or you to be behind his bumper. So
Yeah, I don't want to see
Denny sometimes.
any of the Toyotas, especially Christopher Bell, stay away. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, he's not a very good pusher
Michael
either.
McDowell is in a Chevrolet now. Not that when he was in a Ford, he ever did anything to help. I always complain about the Talladega race, the fourth Talladega race Ryan could have won, that Chase Elliott ends up winning because the 34 of McDowell attempts at the worst possible time to build his own run and doesn't push Ryan coming out of 4. And Chase Elliott just goes on and wins the race and in a Chevrolet instead of a Ford winning, which Ryan could have won. But anyway, McDowell was never a help to any of us in these races. And I'll have to bite my tongue on this if he wins this weekend. But he's doing horribly over at Spire. So what are you gonna do?
There's more speed in the other 2 cars there, that's for sure. Including the car that changed. They changed the lineup today on that.
Yeah, so that was part of
that was kind of
the breaking news today. If you're, this is not a Spire Motorsports or Justin Haley talk show, but thoughts on Rodney Childers, who is a veteran of the garage, 600 plus career starts, championship winning crew chief, was at Stewart-Haas Racing. It closes down. People thought maybe he'd head over to Penske with Josh Berry. That didn't come to fruition, but he takes this job at Spire Motorsports, just in the crew chief role, because Ryan Sparks over there is a competition director. So just was going to originally announced as crew chief for Corey LaJoie, and then they make that swap and Haley comes over. They made it 9 races in. And I talked to Justin a little bit and the folks in our Discord, and I said, it does not surprise me at all because Rodney Childers is a what I would consider like an old school mentality crew chief. And in interviews, he has specifically said that he's not really into the teammate thing and revealing all of his tips and tricks and setup things to everybody else, even on his own organization. And you saw that during their tenure at Stewart-Haas Racing. There were times when Almirola or Boyer or Newman or somebody else over there would win at Stewart-Haas, but the 4 car was the lead car by several positions on track, above and beyond all of them out there. So Rodney really needed to go to another organization that was going to be okay with that mentality, okay with this is my team, I'm going to run it how I want to. You saw super long time, all the way through the SHR years, car chief Cheddar leave and go to Joe Gibbs Racing a few weeks ago, and I thought that's really odd. They've been together forever at this point, essentially. And then here we go. The off week happens, and there was an Instagram rumor yesterday that was picked up by that Break Hard fellow that I don't follow too much, but he's super popular here on TikTok. And then he posts this morning saying that news, and then Jordan Bianchi, the most credible source, comes out and follows up, and then the team statements come out, and I don't know if there's been any follow-up statements of who the Haley interim crew chief will be. They do have 2 crew chiefs in Ryan Sparks and Matt McCall over there that are in leadership roles that could easily work from the pit box this week. Of all the weeks to have this happen, it was a good one for Talladega because it's there's not a ton of strategy there. Like you said, it's more about save as much fuel as you can and then get to the front at the end. So Rodney's one of those guys that actually now we're good with. Hassler and Blaney are champions at this point, work super well together. Before the Hassler move and everything happened, though, there was a point when I think Rodney was asked, is there somebody else you'd want to work with, in your career before it's over? And he actually mentioned Ryan, which was interesting. So,
but is it something, I hate to say this, but this next generation car, is it something that may have passed him by? Because it seems to be there's a couple guys as crew chiefs who have either been bounced around since this car has come out or and so forth, that may have to do something with not being able to grip or figure out the things that they can do within the box or even outside the
Yeah,
box.
Rodney was a master of manipulation when it came to the old car, the old bodies that you could hang differently, suspensions and opportunities that you had there. He honestly, I would say the first or they had some success with Harvick. He in this car to where Harvick was in position to win several races in the next gen car and wasn't able to get it done. So
Yeah.
I think he was doing good enough at the time. But like, I mean, Jeremy Bullins, who again won races with Ryan Blaney, thankful for everything he did, early on in Ryan's career. But the next gen car has passed Jeremy Bullins. In my opinion, I'm not an engineering expert, but he struggled at Penske. He struggled with the Wood brothers. They did get that one win last year before he departed, and he's been over at the 6 car. And the 6 car is almost in must-win territory now. Because of their finishes over there and their struggles over there. And that was like one of the first places I see everybody saying is, oh, RFK needs to hire Rodney right away. And it's like, I don't know where he's at. Like you said, is this the car for him? I've made the comment to you that I said what would be cool and probably wouldn't work financially, though, is for Rodney to go to the Xfinity series, but more specifically the truck series, where that truck is still in old style for the most part, old style body, old style suspensions and things like that, where a guy like him could make a difference and could maybe rack up a bunch of wins to close out his career. But I think he'll end up, I think he's going to take some time off. Maybe, I don't think it'll be the whole year. He kind of made it sound like it might be the whole rest of the year he's going to take off. But I think after a month or two, he's going to get some sort of an offer to start with the team to hit the ground running for 2026. So
you were a bit busy last week, and Thursday the breaking news. Now that we've had like 6-7 days to think about it and everything, I think I said some of what I wanted to say last Thursday when I did the lives. I was glad I got to hear Skip talk about what happened. I'm glad they did a podcast Monday and he put it out there. If anybody's listening and watches that podcast or listens to that podcast, I would like to strangle Corey LaJoy. Can I do that? God bless the guy. He's a good talker, right? But there were a couple of times when Skip was saying some things and he had a train of thought going and he knew where he was going with it. And then Mr. LaJoy got to open his mouth and get in the way and then making Skip kind of backtrack from what he was saying. If anybody could handle this, and that's another thing, I hate to say that, but if anybody could handle it, he's the guy, right? Because of how he, is out there and how he pretty much takes, he'll take the credit, but he takes all the blame, even when it's not his fault. Sometimes he take the blame of things that have happened. And, this week's situation, this week is a week where it's not a big deal because it's going to be on the gas man. And even when they do pit the car for tires, they're still going to be, if you watch this weekend, there will be 13 and 14 second long stops when they do that because it's all about getting as much gas in the car as possible. So for this timing, for this to happen at this point in time is probably a really great thing as far as like giving the new guy. And here's another thing. The new guy is not a new guy. When you read his resume, he's been with Penske for a number of years. He's gotten to fill in or be on cars for certain parts of a season. He was doing rear tire changing. Now he's doing the front tire changing. Skip kind of said something about the pit coach said he's the only guy I really got that's ready, is the way he put it. So that whole swap, should be interesting. Maybe the timing could be a little bit better, a little bit different. When we brought Skip back to this team, that's another thing Skip said. He's been in and off this team for 4 different times. So when Skip come back to this team, what was that, 2022, right? Late season, mid-season, when they decided they wanted to make a change then. Look what happened from that point forward, right? So, is it necessary? I guess so. I mean, they made the move. They wouldn't try and make the move. They didn't think it was going to do something with it. Hopefully it all works out for everybody involved. I'm just glad Skip didn't get totally discouraged.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was some place.
It's an interesting move for Ryan Flores to, like you said, he was brought over to the 12 car to kind of light a spark under that pit crew, and it did, because they immediately go out, they win the All-Star race, they are really strong all of the rest of 2022, nearly winning a ton of races. 2023, I think, was one of their best years ever as a unit. I mean, there was times, if people remember 2019, 2020, 2021, where there was lots of issues and mistakes, and the beginning of 2022 was rough before they made that change. But 2023, I can't really remember too much any issues. And then 2023 in the playoffs, they were on fire. And honestly, for most of this year, up until the last few weeks, there hasn't been any issues as well. We've talked about it on the podcast. There hasn't been any issues for the most part, but when you have teams like the 43 or the 45 and the 23 and the 11 pulling off sub 9 second into the 8 seconds, other major teams like Team Penske is looking around and saying we really should be competing in that range. And I think this is one of those situations where Skip's had a couple of high profile mistakes this year. I don't think he's the sole issue of anything that's going on. And I'm not an expert on any of this. I feel like this is one of those, there's pressure on us to make a change. We have to make some sort of a change. Let's give you an opportunity to go and coach up some of these younger guys, be their mentor, and we'll move you back around probably to a contender if needed. And here's an opportunity for somebody a little, not like you said, not like totally fresh, but to come in and just see if it does light a spark, much like it did when Ryan came over in the first place.
Now here's the thing, and we're in a world of statistics, right? And I guarantee you that the pit coach with all those crews that Penske trains, whether it's for their cars or for the 3 or 4 other cars that they got timing things on guys getting up and moving around the vehicle and so on and so forth. And then you've got this whole thing which we never see this, where they could tell you how all the pit team crews are doing during the year, right? And how they score. And, he even alluded to they were like middle of the pack or something like that right now. But what people don't see, all they see are the times. They don't see what and why, right? They don't see if a jack broke, which has happened this year, right? They don't see or hear about the driver going too deep into the box, running over the hose, having to pull the hose out, finishing the stop, and then him having to back up because he's too close to the car in front of him and spinning it out, coming out. They don't show you or talk about those things, right? The wheel. And when I talked about this, I think I did during the live I did last week. There's marks on the steering wheel, and when they go to, because the clearances are so tight on the front, the wheel has to be turned so far one direction when they change that side, and then when they go to change the other side, he has to turn the wheel so far the other direction. And he's asked that question this year over the radios, So not everything is always black and white, like 9.1 versus 8.9, okay? And yes, the Gibbs have a couple of teams that are doing this whole spinny jack thing, and people will either catch on and get better, or they'll do something to get better. Fine. But for the most part, they usually at least hold serve and, either gained a spot or lost a spot on pit road, except for 2 or 3 of these occasions that these other things that happened, right? And the other one was we did, and Ryan didn't really go over it. The Flores didn't really go over it a couple weeks ago, where they did kind of miss the
post.
The jack, just missed. He missed the post. So, but those are the couple occasions that take your pit times and throw them down the list further too. You're not consistent, right? So last weekend at Bristol, they were the best Penske team. The 4 Penske's, the 3 Penske's, and the Wood Brothers, they were the best team. And they had an extra pit stop in there to even in case that, and if that pit stop went awry, they would have lowered their average or whatever, But, they performed well even in his last performance, including a green flag stop where he still remained on the lead lap, even though, he had lapped the field at that point. But the guy that was gaining him was right behind him and could have lapped him, and he still came out in front of him. So, all these things, Mega said, maybe it'll be a little bit better. Hopefully it's exactly what they needed. It's just about consistency. It's not necessarily about 8.9 every time. It's about not making a big mistake and not having to spend the rest of the race, making up for it. So, I'm fine with the move as far as like because everybody seems to think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
Hopefully
and
it
crew
is.
chief Jonathan Hassler was on XM this around lunchtime with Larry Mack and Daniel Trotta.
Mhm.
They did an interview with him, and he addressed the move, and he basically kind of said the same thing, that this was a good, coming off the off week, going into Talladega, where they can get some reps in with somebody new. They just felt like something needed to change. This is the move that they landed on, and they think it's a good opportunity for both Ryan and was it Keaston? That's Keaston. Yeah,
Houston, Francis.
that's swapping over. They think that company wise and for the whole pit department, it's a good opportunity and a good swap to make. So, um, on the point of like
I,
needing to get in the 8 seconds all the time and things that people don't see or things that people like seem to forget is, especially Denny's team.
mhm.
Even that the race that Denny won with their amazing pit stop at the end, they had a horrible first stop of the day that set them back.
Mhm.
Um, Denny also pushes it on pit road a lot, gets a lot of pit road speeding penalties and like some other issues. So
Bingo.
those
Yeah.
teams that are super elite and can pull off the super fast stops, and actually this current 12 crew has done the sub 9 second stops this year. They've done it, but the ones that do it consistently still seem to have a lot of blunders. Like the 20 crew is another one that's super fast on pit road, that they still have those issues as well. So what we saw from the 12 team, especially in 2023, was just super consistent. Where, like you said, they were kind of in that +1, -1, or hold serve range, which I'm comfortable with. I know people get mad when they lose any kind of position on pit road. If it's -1, +1, I'm usually fairly happy because that can be made up on a choose or made up on the restart, like kind of right away. It's when you get into those situations that they've had this year a couple of times for various reasons, as you
Mhm.
noted, where we're in the minus,
Yeah.
3 range or things like that. That's when it kind of gets a little dicey. If we stay in that sweet spot of just holding the position or -1, +1, I'm happy. And that's what they did all throughout 2023. And that's how they won the championship. Obviously, it'd be awesome to have what some of the Gibbs cars have, or 2311 right now, where they're picking off while the other teams are trying to catch up, picking off 2-3 spots every stop. That'd be great. That will level off at some point. So as far as the change in general, as a fan, you and I were became big fans of Ryan Flores throughout this process. He's been super nice to us over the last couple of years. He was a guest on our show. Got to tell his story. We've followed his, indoor racing and his racing at Bowman Gray. But it's not one of those situations where I'm like, man, I hope this fails. And then it shows that he should have stayed on the car. I don't think we can have that mentality, because if the move fails, it's bad for Ryan Blaney and the team. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's one of those, as much as, admiration or respect we have for Mr. Flores. It's not one of those ones where we want, and he did not even say to him for him to be proven right. Like he said, he's fine with the move too. So it's not one of those like redemption things where we hope that, he lands back on the car because the new guy can't cut it for after the first couple races. We don't want to see that. We want to see an improvement. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. I got a message out to Keaston. I haven't heard back yet. Who knows? He's probably got all this stuff turned off right now, really, with everything that's been going on. But if anybody knows him and sees him and says, "Hey, those crazy podcast guys, you're the new guy. You have to do the show." It's kind of an unwritten rule there at Penske.
Got everybody else.
I wasn't going to bother Jonathan with it just yet. Let's get a couple weeks under our belts here and have some success, and then it'll be fun to come on. That's the one thing that Skip said that it was interesting was about the pressure, the release of pressure, and he didn't want to make it sound bad, but it's true. Like he has been in a pressure cooker for the last 3 years, right? And it's at a point where it felt like almost like a release, like, oh, well, this week coming up, I don't have to, I still have to go out and do my job, but it's not the same now. It's not like the spotlight's not going to be as bright. That's the thing is like we as fans of the 12 team and of Brian have tried to. You definitely tried to be honest and give uh, all the facts, of what when something happens. I'm a little more of an apologist. I understand that, but we've gotten to know everybody over the years too, and we also look at the full body of work versus everybody else's full body of work, right? They're like you said earlier, they're not the only team on pit road, and not everybody, you know. Did anybody know that Raymond Fox's son filled in a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, for that.
Nobody, they don't. Yeah, people don't know that. I mean, if somebody hadn't pointed it out on a different podcast, nobody would have known that somebody got sick and he came from the 34 car and came over and pitted the 12 car for 1 week. I don't even remember what those pit stops were like that day. I have to go back and look now, but were they perfect? Did he do a good job? Maybe they all kind of fit into place sometimes. Or maybe you're kind of a tiptoe a little bit more because you're not sure of the guy. You haven't worked with him before, haven't practiced with him before. That was a weekend of kind of thing too. Like somebody got sick, and he had to fill in. So, that happens more than people know. Keaston, when I was reading some of his bio, he had filled in on other cars, and that's how it happened. Somebody got injured, and he'd be there for a couple of weeks, and do the job. So, hopefully it's everybody's healthy, and hopefully everybody can get from week to week and have a good time with it. But the pressure being off Ryan Skip Flores was interesting with him.
And he's
I could see it. I
yeah.
could see the pressure being on all those guys every week.
And he's not going to he mentioned he's not going to a championship contending car, but he is going to a car that could win this weekend. Yeah. Zane Smith, had an awful season last year at Spire Motorsports. He's gone back home essentially to Front Row where he won a truck championship and was in contention to land one of their cup rides, but it didn't come together. So he ended up signing with Trackhouse, and that was a whole debacle and running for Spire. But that car, the 38, is 24th in points, which in the NASCAR Cup Series, first to 25th is all pretty strong teams. And if you look at teams that are behind him, some surprising ones, like of people that are, their names are up there, Hocevar, who has speed, runs up front in a lot, is behind Zane in the points. Austin Dillon in an RCR car is behind Zane in the points. Daniel Suarez in a Trackhouse car behind Zane in the points. Brad Keselowski in an RFK car that should be running up front behind Zane in the points. So there's a lot of, some big teams that are behind him. Zane's one of those drivers that's super talented. I think just needed a little bit more seat time, a little more stability. And that 38 car is one that could very well go to victory lane this weekend at Talladega, or at Daytona later in the year, or Talladega again, or even sneak up. Some of those front row cars, catch fire some weeks, and they could have that opportunity. So I wouldn't say the pressure is totally off on Mr. Flores, but the opportunity to win the championship is definitely probably lifted off his shoulders a little bit. So we'll have to see what happens there. Other bit of news, I think that was within this last week, and I'm just looking at my Body Armor bottle, is that Body Armor did a rebrand this week of their bottles. So that'll be a little bit interesting. If you're following, if you follow them on Instagram, they completely wiped their Instagram of all of their old content and have re-uploaded just new content with their new style bottles. Why this impacts us outside of, because you're going to see this version of the bottles for a while until that supply runs out. Yeah. That's probably the best one that's ever been created right there. It could impact the Body Armor race cars, because they've taken some of the stylings of the bottle, like the way these stripes work and the shield and things like that, and incorporated it into the paint schemes. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts any of the Body Armor cars going forward. So check them out. I made a joke of on our X account yesterday of Kyle Larson was sharing that he was having a meet and greet this
Yeah, what was
weekend
that?
because he is now a prime. You know how Ryan has Body Armor as a personal services agreement and a sponsorship agreement. I don't think that Prime is going to sponsor Kyle Larson on the race car. I'm not sure, but he has a personal services agreement with Prime, so he is a Prime driver now. Which Prime in my from everything I've read is like
That
poison.
was a
So, but Larson's having like a
scary
Prime
look.
meet and greet, and I shared that and said no thanks. Friends don't let friends drink Prime. We drink Body Armor.
Yeah, that was a scary
Yeah, I
looking
think it's just the
display.
lighting.
It like gave me a jump scare. Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, what the heck is that? It almost looked like it, didn't belong in the universe. Yeah, the rebranding thing would be interesting. Maybe by Charlotte for the 600.
Yeah, they usually have that car. Yep.
They usually have that a body armor car. That awesome camouflage scheme.
I know somebody I can ask that might have a good idea the next time a Body Armor car will show up.
You might know somebody who might be watching right now could have a good idea. I don't know. Just saying.
They don't tell us.
But
so we'll see how that goes. What did you think of today's announcement? I don't know all the specific details of the All-Star race changes. They're adding 50 laps to the All-Star race this year. They are adding which people are all up in arms about, like it's going to be the worst thing ever, a promoter's caution, which is like a competition caution that Marcus Smith can throw whenever he wants. And people are worried like that didn't read the details. They're like, oh, he's going to throw it with one to go or something in the race and totally screw things up. The race is going to be 250 laps this year. They're not allowed to throw the promoter's caution after lap 220. So that's thrown out.
First off, they're calling it they're calling it a promoter's caution. They're calling it that. It's not going to be him calling it. It'll be NASCAR calling it.
Well,
first off,
they said that it's going to be him, but it's probably going to be him in with talking with them about when the best time it could be. And honestly, in these races, in the way Logano has dominated the race last time, the way Larson dominated before, it's not going to be a hard call. You're probably going to want to, if it's strung out, you're going to call it at 219. So, I mean, that's when it's going to go.
Just in time, because here's
the fun flag.
Did it. SRX had that all the time, right? And why? Because it's made for TV, right? And the All-Star race is what? Made for TV. Hey, this NASCAR itself technically is made for TV, and people forget that half the time. That's why they're all up in arms half the time about, oh, they're changing everything. Well, they're changing it because they want to try and get more viewers.
I think it's fine.
And who really wants in an All-Star race? Who really wants to watch the leader get out and lap all the way to 10th place?
And they don't have stages,
especially since
I don't think there's stages in the All-Star race, is there? So
yeah, so there's not as many cars on the track. It's easier to get the guys, and then they start lapping them, and then what? Or watch Larson lap all the way to 8th place or something like that, and give them a chance to regroup and see if somebody can attack them. And here's the thing about it: at least at a short track like this, if they do re-rack them, then they're going to have a chance to actually bump into each other a little bit. I mean, for $1 million, you wouldn't do it at a super speedway, but on that track, if you had to run somebody a little high to get through or get by, you might do it, because the laps are running thin and you want a chance to win. So, that just adds to the drama of it. I have nothing wrong with nothing.
No, it doesn't bother me. I think the reason a lot of people were bothered by it was they didn't understand like how it was going to be used. So if the same people probably loved it in SRX, and they just don't understand that it's very similar in this situation. So the other wrinkle to this was they're adding something called like the manufacturer showdown, where I admittedly didn't read the full details on this, just that they're going to pick 4 cars from each manufacturer, and the highest finishing, I'm sure they're going to average the finishing positions of each one, and whoever comes out the highest wins the manufacturer showdown. I think that's just something that especially a lot of longtime fans are super loyal to Ford or Chevrolet. Maybe not as many as loyal to Toyota, but maybe there are. So that's the other wrinkle there. They're opening up the pit crew challenge to the open teams as well, which I guess they weren't allowed to participate in the last few years. So that's something different. Now, the rumor that came out and that Bozy, who is the guy that's the pit crew guy that is on a pit crew on an IMSA car, but he's like super into the NASCAR world as well. He's actually started his own podcast now, and he went over a rumor that has now been confirmed by several folks in the media that NASCAR went to the teams for this all-star race and actually said, hey, what do you guys think about what fans ask for kind of all the time? The run what you brung race, where we are only going to do a safety inspection on the cars and you can bring whatever suspensions and components. I don't know if they would have let them touch the engines or not, horsepower wise, but I think as far as everything else, aerodynamics on the cars, like that kind of thing, they said, hey, what do you think about that? We'll do safety inspections to make sure they'll be safe to race, but other than that, no rules. And the team said, no thanks. Denny did immediately respond on this and said on Actions Detrimental on Monday or Tuesday when they record after Talladega that he will address this and explain the team's decision. I'm going to say it is $1 million to win the race, but the purse through the rest of the field is lower than it is for a normal cup race. And that's going to be what it is. They would waste more money trying to come up with like a fancy car than they could actually win in the race. That's my assumption. So
yeah, that's what I read too. It's all about cost. Be cost efficient. It's better to just have the playing field be level and not worry about who tricked out what. It's funny though that you said that about like engines, because it would have been interesting to see if anybody would have been allowed to add horsepower and then watch a short track race with more horsepower. I don't think NASCAR would have liked that because it might have shown something that they don't want people to know about. But obviously, because that's the one thing they're not allowed to talk about on the podcast anymore when it comes to fixing short track racing. But that would have been interesting because somebody would have tried to tweak something there, I'm sure, if they could have. But then you'll have that story like where like what was that car that Jeff Gordon brought to the one
the T-Rex car,
where the thing is just T-Rex, So if you have something like that, then what, So yeah, I think it's better that they didn't, or that the owners decided not to.
So maybe one last thing for us to go over. I brought up fantasy, and you don't have to necessarily go through. You can save that for Sunday, but we can just talk about guys you're going to look at this week. And I'm looking at the finish to this race in the fall. The last time they're at Talladega, and I'm completely forgot that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won the race. So I forgot. I keep thinking his last win was at that Daytona 500 win, but he didn't win the race. And yeah, Brad is second. So this is that one where I think they think Brad made a bad choice at the end of the race and kind of lost it for himself. So the top 10 in the fall was Stenhouse, Keselowski, Byron, Larson, Jones, Bell, Haley, Austin Dillon, Bubba Wallace, and Denny Hamlin. Again, Ryan crashed out of this race and finished 39th, so we don't want to see that again. But I can tell you right up front from the guys that I picked, and maybe I will go through my fantasy lineup since I won't be here to do it on Sunday. So unless something dramatic changes, I don't think it will. But fantasy lineup: Keselowski, Cindric, McDowell, Buescher, Austin Dillon, and I have Ryan in the garage, and I don't expect to use Ryan. The one thing I'm thinking about right now, and maybe I'll make this change live on air, is swapping Austin Dillon for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I'll do that. Okay. So that's my starting lineup. In the featured matchups, I picked Cindric over Bowman. I picked Chastain over Larson because Larson just seems to struggle in these types of races. I picked Logano over Kyle Busch, and I picked Austin Dillon over Noah Gragson. So is there anybody in this? Do you approach this week like I do, where there's a lot of load management to where you're maybe picking the McDowells and the Stenhouses, or do you go in with some of the big name drivers?
Yeah, you know what? I'm looking at it now because I didn't even realize that the feature picks are up there too. I like the strategy of Ryan in the garage. Maybe not for you because you're not going to be able to swap him out. But for me, like if he gets through first stage and it looks like he's getting stage points in first stage and the second stage, I might. That's the one thing I look at as best I can is who got first stage points, and then who gets, or it looks like they're about to get second stage points, and I'll hurry up and make that move right before the end of a stage if I can. That way, if something happens in the third stage, I've at least got, if I have a guy who's in the lineup and he gets crashed in the third stage, and hopefully he's scored some points early in the race on stage points. So, and that's the thing, is like having him in the garage might be worth it. And then if he, let's say, wins stage one, I just take him out of the garage right now. Beyond that, we talked about Cindric's the most interesting character of the bunch, because lately he's been running really well. He would be way higher in the standings if he didn't have the point thing happen to him. So he'd be up there pretty good. I could see, Kyle Busch has been pretty successful there in the last couple of years, had a chance or two to win. And I like Bubba Wallace too, obviously. He's been extremely good there. So those are the kinds of guys I'm looking at. Like I said earlier about Denny, like I can't trust Denny to get stage points, let alone, push properly, be pushed properly. Same with the 20 car, these guys are way up there in the point standings, but they make poor decisions. William Byron's another one. He'll crash the field sometimes just to get the victory, and I don't like, he's capable, very capable of a bad push, basically. Larson, his luck is totally horrible at super speedways. He'll be happy to get the heck out of there half the time. So, all about the fuel guy this weekend. Who's got the best fuel guy on pit road?
If there's a hot hand in the Penske stable, I think it is Austin Cindric. And I'm not saying he's better or surpassed Ryan or anything, but in the last few races in this style of racing, he has led a lot of laps. He's gotten to the front. Now, Ryan has been right behind him, pushing him a lot, especially at like Atlanta and Daytona earlier in the year. But Cindric was able to do it without Ryan and Joey as well. So I would not be shocked if he's clean throughout this race, if he has an opportunity to win. I mentioned Josh Berry earlier in the live. See if he can make his way to the front and run along. Because if we can get all four of those Penske cars up front and they can start controlling lanes, that's perfect, especially for stage points, and then especially when it comes down to the win. They've gotten a little bit better at racing each other for the wins since the Joey and Brad situation. Now again, Austin did put Ryan into the wall at the Daytona 500, but at least it was right before the finish line and not before that. So we'll see.
The 22 is unstable too, though. Sometimes he gets a little hairy in the pack and then does things too. So the 47. That's the funny thing about the 47 winning is like he's crazy at pushing people and trying to get to the front sometimes, to the point where he makes bad decisions too. But then on the other hand, he gets out front, he wins. So I think the Austin Dillon thing was interesting about that too, because Austin Dillon's another guy. And those matchups are very interesting. Chastain and Larson are both two guys that are not great super speedway racers.
Chastain, he has the one victory at Talladega. A couple years back. So if you want to tune in this weekend, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time on Saturdays, qualifying for the Cup Series. Again, just qualifying, no practice. That's going to be on Prime. The Xfinity Series race is at 4 p.m. Eastern time on the CW. If you're paying attention a little bit earlier, I mentioned the ARCA Menard Series and Cletus McFarland and all the fun that can happen there. The ARCA Series at super speedways get a ton of cars usually. With a ton of cars comes a ton of carnage, though. So buckle up for that one, 12:30 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. And then Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, we have the Jack Links 500 from Talladega. That is going to be on Fox, so on the main network of Fox, MRN, SiriusXM NASCAR Radio, and on Max streaming with the in-car cameras. And I hope for your sake, though, I think you have a backup with the app. You can hear Timmy this week because the unfortunate part about the last Cup race was there was no from Bristol. There was no spotter audio with the Max streaming, and it made me very sad, especially for somebody that let his app subscription fall by the wayside because of the Max stuff. And then suddenly, when I needed it, I didn't have it. So I think that's pretty much a wrap. Thanks to Justin and Chelsea, and there was a Larson fan in there, and Joe Green and CJ and everybody else that participated in the chat tonight. We'll do these lives during the week, kind of mostly spur of the moment. You can catch us nearly every Monday. I know the last show we actually did, I think, was a little bit later, just because I was on the road and there's a time difference. But Mondays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, we will live stream the recording of our weekly podcast. It won't be like tonight where it was super interactive and we're just asking questions. We're pretty regimented on how Mondays work, with how we do the in-depth recaps and talk about practice and qualifying and everything that happened during the race, and then have some fun banter back and forth in between there. But we do still encourage you to hop into the chat, because we might see you guys bring up some ideas that we'll see along the way. So
see if you can make Adam mess up.
And we'll see. And hopefully when I get back on Monday to do that, I'll have my signed quarter panel behind me and everything will be happy, if that works out. I'm hoping it stays dry this weekend at Talladega, so everybody can have a good time. Hoping I don't party too hard on the boulevard. If we make it. Honestly, the last time we were down there, we were tired and we didn't even go to the concert. But this time we'll see. Justin Moore, who is a country artist, pretty popular, has 5 or 6 hit songs. So we shall see. We will make it down to the boulevard. At least the last couple of times we've walked up and down it once or twice, saw a little bit of the concert, and then headed back to the hotel.
So Sunday at 2:00 here, we'll do a live here with whoever. If I can get somebody, or might just be me talking to camera and talking to anybody who wants to chime in. But that'll be Sunday at 2:00. And on TikTok tomorrow, I think, like I said, I'm probably going around noonish and do a little live for like a little bit, if anybody wants to do that. Maybe one of these times I'm going to have Justin come on and just do like a Justin's Corner on autograph seeking and meeting celebrities and stuff. Because, man, he's good at it. He knows all the ins and outs. Him and his wife actually both know all the ins and outs. They acquired a piece of...
the best part about Justin and Chelsea too is they are often in that crowd of folks that are out there getting autographs and things. What you're not going to see with them is duffel bags full of cars that are of various drivers and crazy things like that they're waiting to get home to list on eBay. If you see photos from Justin and Chelsea's collection, they're cherishing basically every item that they get signed by these guys, and you won't find bigger NASCAR fans than them. So they're good folks, and they probably have lots of tips. Like I said, I've been leaning on him. I told him I'm sorry for asking all these questions about going to one stupid meet and greet, but I know that he's kind of a pro at it. So we'll see how that goes. So looking forward to seeing them over the weekend. Looking forward to see Ryan in the 12 team. Again, they're coming off of back-to-back top 5 finishes. They have righted the ship after a few horrible weeks of parts failures and engine failures and other issues. They've righted the ship so far. Actually, it was kind of sad to see the off week to kill them at that momentum, but they need to keep going. They need to keep things going in the right direction and pick up the victory. That's one thing Jonathan said in his interview today, is they've had the speed. He said they've been the fastest Penske car all year long. They need to find a way to execute and seal the deal and kick off the first win of what should be another multi-win season for Team 12. So we'll catch you as a group at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time on Monday with our race recap. Follow Steve here doing a live tomorrow on TikTok and doing a live on Sunday around 2 p.m. before the race at Talladega. Should be a lot of fun. So we'll catch you then.